Welcome back to the Unshakable Soul Podcast. We're on episode 79, and I have with me Jonathan McAdam. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited for this. So I just love the opportunity. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have this conversation. Jonathan is the owner of Start Arts Inc., an initiative dedicated to creating meaningful streetwear and art with a message of resilience. And he's been in recovery from substance abuse for 14 years, and he uses his company to support other individuals in their own recovery journey. He first started his conscious awakening at 21 years old, and since then has been shedding off the old to replace it with the new. Oh, when you reached out, and I started looking more into your business and your messaging, I was like, I definitely need to have him on my podcast. We need to talk about the Matrix. What the hell is the Matrix? How we all get addicted in certain degrees, and really the thematic of what we're collectively going through, this emergence of, we can say, the new human, the new earth, and what our role is within that. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I always love to start off with guest speakers sharing their own story. Where, what is the thread that led you to where you're at? Where did it begin? And feel free to share whatever is coming up for you.
Well, it's interesting. I think one of the first things that popped up in my mind was pain. And to get into that, it's basically like for myself. I mean, I grew up in like guardianship, foster care, group homes, alcohol abuse, and things like that. So, to be honest, by the age of 10, I had already kind of like pre-programmed myself into what my worth was, which was basically by the age of 10, sex, drugs, alcohol, crime, living on the wild side, being rebellious, world, and everybody in it kind of thing. And then and then I remember when my guardians, she always used to tell me, she's like, well, you want to know what? You're gonna make your bed and you're gonna lie in it. And I was like, and again, I didn't really take anything too much into that. And then I was 30 years old, drunk and high, sleeping on couches, going through psychosis, self-mutilation, deadbeat dad, getting fired from all my jobs, filled with shame, anger, guilt, regret, frustration, pain beyond my own understanding. And then I was like, oh, make your bed and you're lying it. But the thing was, I didn't have a bed to lie in because of the choices and the disbelief that I had in myself and within my own divinity, ultimately.
Mm.
Um, and then, the more I kind of looked deeper into it, is that I feel that, say, individuals that, I don't know, the right word is like, you know, sees through the veil. So, in a sense, I believed in the beginning, I didn't necessarily belong,
Mm.
in the world, in the system, even though I was in the system, literally, a ward of the province. Um, but I feel when it came to my addictions and stuff like that, it was almost trying to escape what I didn't feel was real. But then, and it's crazy because then I created a false illusion on top of that as well. So it was kind of like living in the world and seeing through the world, but not knowing how to deal with it. Because I mean, the way I grew up, there wasn't really that support. There wasn't that, you know, um, uh, guidance. There was a lot of abuse, but that wasn't guiding me. That was just kind of, you know, putting me into a deeper, darker kind of depression within myself because even that I wasn't really understanding about how, what was being shown to me, which to me wasn't. wasn't love either, right? So the main thing is, like I was saying, when it goes into pain, I think it got to a certain point where I was filled with so much pain and so much shame, so much anger, and so much guilt and regret that, you know, it just wasn't, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I went into treatment for 26 months and, started dealing with myself. Because also when we go back, trying to take up too much time on this, but also when we go back to, when I was in my early 20s, that's when I feel kind of like God source universe kind of revealed, itself to me. And it kind of showed me even deeper kind of the world that we live in, this world of illusion. And then so at that point in time, I started, taking a bit of a deeper dive into kind of like the spiritual reality of things instead of the physical reality of things. And then, but at that point in time, to be honest, like scripture talks about seeds that are being planted. And at that point in time, I believe I had a seed, a spiritual seed that was planted, but the spiritual seed was planted kind of like in the weeds. So when it started to, the roots started to be anchored, and I started to bloom from that first spiritual seed, the world and addiction and still the shame and all these weeds, overtook me. And then so I started to grow, and everything was enlightened and everything was beautiful and everything was bright. And I felt so connected to everything and myself and God and creation. Um, but the seed wasn't in a conducive space to actually flourish, I guess. So then the world came over and took it over. And then when it did that, it went 9 years again in the deepest, darkest recess of my existence, because I finally tried to break through um, my own self. So I started to allow love in. I started to be more vulnerable. I started to open myself to life and to love and family and all of that stuff. But again, you know, addiction, shame, anger, guilt, regret took over. And then I went back even further back because I tried and then failed again. Um, but then when I was 30 years old, so basically 10 years later, uh, I went into treatment for 26 months. And I took myself out of society, away from the environment, started tearing myself down again, and started to deal with all the different traumas and abandonments and lacks and limitations and pain and anger and all of that stuff, which now started to give me an opportunity to actually start seeing myself for who I am. But the more I start seeing myself for who I am, God's source universe also starts revealing itself even more, because now it's more, there's more of a clear channel to connect to the divine, because there's not so much shame, anger, guilt, regrets, frustrations, all of that stuff that was kind of hindering that growth and expansion. But at the same time, I had to go through all of that darkness in order to actually understand to a deeper level to what love and to what light actually is. So you had to experience so much of the darkness to actually appreciate and see the light that actually it's always been there.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that powerful journey. Just to begin our conversation with that. Woo!
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm hearing many things that are resonating right now. And if you're listening to this and maybe you think you can't identify because you yourself haven't been in drug addiction, like, let us take a moment to reframe and actually realize what addiction actually is. This is one piece that I'd like to go into to really start shedding light, trouble with my words this morning, on how the matrix gets us, the matrix, the current one we're in right now, how it gets us into this conditioning, into this spiral of shame, guilt, and fear. And the second element is, because you mentioned it, there was a moment of awakening. There was a breakthrough moment, aha moment. But then there was a setback. There was some feeling, perhaps, of love, union, connection, whatever it is. But the shame and fear was still there. And the more light wants to come in, the more the darkness will want to rise. And the weeds, as you were beautifully kind of eliciting to, is like pulls you deeper. And what came through is like no mud, no lotus, right? You cannot not look at your shadows. You cannot not look at all the ways that you self-abandon, self-betrayal, and it's easy to get in victimhood, slippery slope. But this is a piece that I think is really important for everybody listening to remember. So I don't know if you want to speak on that, which one you want to start with, the addiction, extrapolating that, and then like dealing with your shit.
Yeah. Well, this goes like really, really super, super deep because to be honest, even like I'm coming up on 14 years from alcohol and um, abstaining from alcohol and drugs and things like that, February 7th. And like even still to still to this day, because this is a never ending thing, but like I've been shedding off a lot of what I consider old programs because again, when I was the way I grew up in the way that we're all growing up, because the way I look at it, we talk about, this matrix and addiction, because like I was mentioning prior to us starting about being addicted to the matrix, being addicted to the system, being addicted to technology, being addicted, to sex, being addicted to food, being addicted to shame, being addicted to regret, being addicted to all of these things, because even we get addicted to those things. There's a lot of things that I'm realizing when it goes to my shadows. And like I've been over the past week, to be honest, like I've been facing massive, massive shadows right now. And it's not easy. And the thing is, when we're facing these shadows, I think it's like you were saying before, it's like, these shadows don't want to necessarily be seen, or they don't want to be revealed. So they go crazy, and they scramble, and then all of a sudden, even potentially more things will happen to bring you back down into the lower densities with shame, anger, control, addiction, and stuff like that. And but it's because we're breaking free, right? We're breaking free from the shadows. We're breaking free from the limitations. We're breaking free from what has kept us in the same loop over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what the system is. The system wants to keep people in loops. They don't want people to break free from the illusion that has been ultimately, we'll say, like implanted or programmed into the consciousness of humans. And that starts from the beginning. My parents, our parents were born into a system of lies, manipulation, deceit. So even what our parents, or what our current parents or authorities, whatever else, think is real is only a default program based off of what isn't real. And then it's like trying to see through, these addictions or whatnot that keep us trapped, without actually having to face what we need to face, which is ourselves, which is these limitations that we think that we have, which there are actually no limitations besides the limitations that we put upon our minds. So
Yeah, this I want to bring this conversation. I love where it's going, but just for the listeners that are maybe getting confused about the matrix and what that means, there's an important piece here I think that has to be highlighted in like I guess explaining a little bit what we're talking about when we say this matrix, the illusion, because this could be very scary for a lot of people, right? I remember when I had multiple awakenings, multiple moments of like, oh my fuck, everything's a lie. Like it's a lot. Yet truth can liberate, and it does if you're willing to see it and feel it. But for some, it can be very shaking. So what do you see as being the false matrix, and what actually feeds it? How did you experience it in your life, like bringing it very tangible?
Um, well, I mean, for me, it's like what I consider like a part of a false matrix is the disbelief in our divinity. Not recognizing that we are super powerful beings, that we are divinely connected to God's source universe, ultimate of all things, and then but the world that we live in wants to keep us down here. You know, it wants to keep us in control. It wants to keep us in fear. It wants to keep us in separation. It wants to keep us distracted. You know, and if it can keep us distracted when we're not looking at ourselves anymore, but we're relying on an outside source to bring us happiness, to bring us fulfillment, you know, it's still ultimately kind of an illusion because we're being told that we need to find our happiness and everything like that outside of us in the material world. But, you know, and by doing that, we're not looking deeper within ourselves. And I think that's where the trap is where, you know, if the outside world can keep its power over our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our energy, frequency, vibration, then it keeps control of us. And we're not able to kind of look deeper, kind of in the spiritual aspect of things. I'm trying to, I hope that answered a bit of
Yeah.
the question.
No, that helps, and it's more for really painting a picture for the listener of what that actually could look like in their life. Like, where have you been outsourcing your power ultimately? You know, where have you been waiting for something to come your way that you don't believe you can claim right here, right now? What makes you believe the classic? It's like, when I will. You know, we live as the effect and not as the cause of our miracles in the life. And sometimes we live as the cause of our misery. This is not something people want to hear, right? This is not something when you realize that I have been feeding into the matrix, the false matrix, let's put it that way. And then we'll talk about the original matrix later.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big ego death. Probably the biggest one, because again, with a relationship there has to be two parts of reciprocity, right? And realizing all the ways that you've actually been feeding into it. And what do I mean about that? It's actually believing whatever your parents or society or tells you you should be doing with your life. All the voices inside your head that says you're good at nothing, you're gonna stay where you are forever, who would want you, you're too skinny, you're too fat, everything is wrong with you, basically. You need to be fixed. I hate that word, but I've heard it way too many times. I'm going to put it out there. Like, what was like your. And also, realizing that we speak about shadows, right? And it's less, I see less about like when the light gets really bright and when you have those awakening moments, when you have that moment of love. I think that's really the opportunity for us to actually look to our shadow and realize that it's not that scary, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
deep shadow work, right? And this is not for the faint of hearted, but for those that are listening that are curious to actually understand more about shadow work. It's the Cole's Notes is your shadows is your greatest gift. If only you have the courage to sit with them, to get curious and to lovingly observe what they're saying, what they're doing, what they're asking for. Underlying that is the need. Like, what do you need? What do you need that you believe you have to get in sex, in alcohol, in food, in drugs, in the career, whatever that's burning you out, but you know, because your mom said you should be a doctor, so here you are. Examples, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to go off that riff.
Well, kind of it was because I look at kind of what you were talking about, and that was thing that kind of came into mind to her before. It's like when we go into like these, these shadows or these limiting beliefs or these, programs and stuff like that, is that it's like they talk about like a baby elephant or whatnot. So it's like let's just say like as a baby elephant for it not to go astray, it gets pinned, right? And then, but it's not even a big pin. It's just like a smaller pin, right? But it's a limiting, say it's a limiting beliefs that starts pinning a person or pinning the elephant down, and then but then the elephant grows up. But because of the initial things, it's like I look at myself when I first came into life and stuff like that. It was hard. It was again a lot of abuse, a lot of this, a lot of that. So that kind of like tied me down at that point in time. And then so I basically kind of like gave up for a period of time, even though I grew up, and as we grow up into being adults and things like that, like we can actually easily break free from this initial stake. But
Mm.
we choose not to because when we were younger, we might have tried to break free from something, but then weren't able to, and then we just kind of like gave up and we just surrendered to what was or what we thought was due to, you know, old programs or whatnot. But then, it's a matter of understanding that we can break free from that. I
Yeah.
hope that answered.
Yeah. An important piece here is when you're young, this child's evolution, there are stages that are divinely orchestrated for you to cultivate your creative gifts. There's a lot of self expression. The tantrums are sacred. Those moments of like creative um, outbursts and curiosity too. A child's always in awe. Like that is very easily destroyed with the spells and the words that parents and society say to a child, especially the first 7 years. And the more they get conditioned into society, into this matrix, and we'll talk about the original matrix after, the more they lose their energy. So you have a lot of energy, you're coming in the world. And some people get the conditioning earlier than others, but most part it's like you're teens, you're trying to rebel ish, and then you're getting to a phase where in your 20s, that's the tipping point. Usually in your 20s, it's either like, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to stay in this job. I'm giving really general examples here. I'm going to stay in this job. I'm going to marry this person. Like, they're okay. Because, I think I have to get married and get a house and have a pension and whatnot. And then sooner or later, your soul disassociates from its body even more, and you start getting disease, and you have no more energy. You have no more energy to break free. And I do quotation marks for break free, because what are we breaking free from? If we are part of the matrix, then what we're really just in its essence doing is shifting our awareness and consciousness to the divine, to the realization you mentioned at the beginning, like, I am God, I am divine, I am source, I am love. And the moment we start feeding from the original matrix, I just have energy. I trust. I'm in the right place at the right time, even if it's unpleasant. And this is the part people don't want to hear. So maybe you had this experience, and I'd love for you to go off this if you'd like. An experience where you just had to fucking trust. Even in the darkness, with the unknown, with the bottle in your hand maybe, but you knew like, holy shit. Like, I am guided. I am held. I am worthy of something more. Like, was there a moment for you where you're like, and everything's perfect? Even if on the outside, or if there was a bystander being like, no, that's not fucking perfect.
Yeah. So it's actually Well, it's interesting. When I went into treatment, one of my mantras when I went in was never give up, never give in. I realistically don't care what barriers are in my way because I know these barriers are actually the way anyway. And before I used to be a victim to those things. Now it's just like, okay, what is this? What am I learning from this? How am I growing from this? This actually isn't there to, destroy me. It's actually there to make me, kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
But kind of when I was again at the height of my addiction and stuff like that, I used to do a lot of writings, and what I consider my writings is kind of like prayer journals. So when I'm doing my writings, I'm allowing God, source, universe to kind of channel through me in order to guide the present, the person I was at the time. So let's just say, for example, um, and again, I've written quite a bit, but at the age of like 20, 29 or whatever else, shame, anger, guilt, regret, frustration, lost, and a whole bunch of stuff, anger. But the writings, even though I was completely whacked out of my head and I'd have to like really try and decipher what I was reading because it was so, like unorganized and distraught. But the message was, you are worthy. The message was, you are loved. The message was, you're worth more. The message was, stop living this life and enter into the life that you're supposed to be in, right? And so it's like God's universe was trying to let me know. It's just like, I know that you're living this life, but this isn't you. And then, so for such a long period of time, I looked at my first 30 years of life as pure destruction. I destroyed everything within myself, I destroyed everything outside of myself, and all the relationships and everything like that, just due to unhealed things and how I ultimately internally kind of viewed myself. But as of like 6 months ago, Gosler's universe was like, he didn't go through all of that as destruction. He's like, I allowed you to go through all of that to experience all that you're not, so that you can actually embody all that you are. And that everything that you went through was not destruction. It was actually just preparation for what I have for you in order to help out other individuals that are going through the same types of darkness, because in one way or another we don't have to be struggling with addiction in respects to substance abuse or anything like that. Like, we're all going through something, we're all going through a shadow, we're all going through a darkness. And it takes courage, it takes an immense amount of courage to start facing these things that we don't want to face, or that we don't even know that's there, because we're so distracted by the quote unquote system or the quote unquote matrix that it it um it almost, well, it hinders us from actually looking deeper inside of ourselves, and we keep on looking for the outside world to give us and fill this void that we have within ourselves. But there's nothing outside of us that's going to be able to fill what's in us until we start looking at what needs to be filled and what we're filling it with that actually isn't conducive to our soul's evolution.
Yeah, beautiful. Highlighting right here, like you needed to go through that. What came through was the word forging. Like you were forged in the fire.
I
You
got,
went through the
I
fucking
got,
fire.
I got the burns.
Yeah, you got the marks.
Multiple
You got the
places.
marks, but the difference is that you stayed in the fire long enough to realize your strength. And most people don't want to get fucking in the fire. Why the fuck would I go stand in the fire when I have an easy button right here? Right? Instant gratification kills us. Slowly.
Yes.
Slowly. So I want to shift the conversation now to the original Matrix. Let's talk a little bit about that, how you experience it, and maybe a couple of examples. Like, I want to make this tangible for listeners, like the difference. How do you know if you're living? Like, what does it mean to live in the original Matrix? And what is the difference? How do you know when you're not in it? And how do you know when you are in it?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that kind of come up into my mind is if we're if we're being dictated by all the chaos that's happening outside of us and we're giving all of our time and attention to all the things that we can't control, then we're giving our power away. Because the only thing I can control is how I'm, reacting and or responding to things that are happening outside of me. And ultimately, we live in a very reactive system in society because we haven't learned how to look at ourselves. So this when it goes to this spiritual, emotional intelligence on how to deal with chaos in a sense. We don't know how, but we keep on focusing all our time on it. And if we're focusing our time on what we can't control, then we're just giving our power away to an illusion. But we have the choice to not. We can understand what's happening. I see what's happening, right? But I don't need to feed into what's happening. I don't need to give my power to, the news. I don't need to give my power to, all the distractions, right? But so a lot of that is fear. It's fear, it's doubt, and they want to keep you in that like you have no control. But ultimately we do have control, and then when we can surrender our attention from the outside world to the inside world, now we can start more or less focusing on love and peace and unity and surrender and healing and all of that stuff. Because again, if we're too dictated by the illusion of all the chaos that's happening and all the pain that's happening, and I recognize the pain and I see the pain and I feel the pain,
Yeah.
like there's times I just feel like breaking down and crying, kind of like for two reasons. I mean, one of them is because I feel the weight, what's happening,
Yeah.
but and at the same time, trying to be a beacon of light, you know, as we go through this transition, because whatever happening needs to happen in order for us to
Mm.
truly start facing what we don't want to face,
Yeah.
right? And that's painful. But again, are we focusing on, we can focus on the destruction aspect of things, or we can focus on the healing aspect of things. And if we're focused on all the negative, then we're being caught into the false matrix. But when we focus on the healing, what the lessons are being learned and how we're actually able to evolve and transcend what's occurring, then now we're entering into more of the divine matrix. And I mean, it's all happening here and now. There's people in this planet that are so connected to the divine that they don't even understand. And it's not that they don't understand; they just don't give power to the outside world. And then so therefore they have created peace and serenity and unity and all the beautiful things within themselves. And when they're complete within themselves, then they're not being dictated by an external thing which wants to keep us away from our divinity and that love and unity. Because I am no different from you. You are no different from me. None of us are different. Like we're all going through the same things. We all live on this one planet, and we're all experiencing different things in different ways. But if we would come to recognize that I am you and you are me, and I'm a student of you and you are a teacher of me, and I'm a teacher of you and you are a student of me, then there's no separation within that. But if the quote unquote false matrix can divide us all,
Mm.
separate us, then we're alone. We feel alone. And
Yeah.
we don't feel like there's a person that we can trust or a person that we can connect with and things like that. And that's how they control, is by separating us. I mean, if we came together and unified to the original truth of who we are, which is one, then it's like I still like that saying. It's like I'm not the drop in the ocean. I am the ocean. You're not just the drop in the ocean. You are the ocean, and collectively
Yeah.
we make up the ocean, which is all that is.
Yeah. I'm gonna add on that. Thank you for sharing this. This was really nice to have that overview of what the divine matrix is. For some, it may still be vague what that is, but I'd like to offer now this analogy that you just
Can I cut you for 1 second?
go for it. Please do.
Yeah. Look into the eyes of a child.
Hmm.
You want to know what the real matrix is? Look into the eyes of a child. Look into the innocence of a child. Look into the unconditional love of a child. Look into the non judgmental aspect of a child. Look at the wonder of a child. Look at the divinity of a child. Look at the beauty of a child. Look at the possibilities of a child. That's that's the truth. You know, that's it's like the origin, right? There, it's pure love.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. I love this. The child becomes the teacher. Um, when the ego is surrendered to that, though, because a lot of adults think they know best because they've lived experiences already. Who the fuck says that you know best? Like, there's a lot of ego deaths that happen on this path when you're starting to awaken to the falsities, the lies, and there's a humility that comes into play. And I'll tag to that. Yes, the child is very connected to original matrix and animals. I've realized that more and more with my dog. It's just I look at the dog and I'm like, it's bathing in the sun, no worries at all. It has it has food, it goes out, it wants a walk, it's connected, it's definitely psychic and sensitive. I'm like, fuck. And of course, we're wired a bit differently as humans, and we have this sharp mind that kind of fucks us over. But if we utilize it well, and really our attention and our energy flowing to healing, love, connection versus fear, anxiety, separation, then we can become these divine children, right? Not we're not acting childlike or childish. We're like childlike. So that awe, that curiosity
Mm-hmm.
you're mentioning about, I think that's beautiful. That's why like connecting with nature and just being, maybe you have children of your own, maybe you don't, is just bringing in that curiosity, the awe, the wonder. Like, what if this was the best thing happening to me right now? You know, what if like endless possibility of like who I can become. And the last thing I want to share here, and we can riff on this, you are the ocean, yes, and you're also the drop and that single wave that's creating the ripple. You're part of this whole beautiful ocean. And I think that's beautiful tied into Start Arts, which is really, if I, based on what I saw, self expression. It's cultivating your unique gift through art, through vision board, through expressing yourself and your artistry. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that and the power of that.
Yeah, so a couple things kind of come to mind with that. I mean, I look at, I'm not a scholar, but I'm pretty well versed when it goes to scriptures and things like that, and kind of like pinpointing the exact kind of period of time that we're living in right now, which is absolutely, we think it's chaos and everything like that, but it all needs to fall apart in order for us to rebuild something greater beyond what we can even conceive. So it's not that it's falling apart, it's actually falling into place. And it just depends on your perspective of things. And again, what you're feeding into, if you're feeding into the destruction, well, that's what you'll create. But if you're recognizing that things need to be destroyed, um, and if that's outside, whatever, it also goes within inside. Again, over the past week, I've been tearing up a lot of things within me. But anyway, to get to the point is that, scripture talks about we're born in the image of God, born in the image of creation, right? So the way my perception of this is that, well, if that's fact, then we are all creators. I am divinely and spiritually gifted. You are divinely and spiritually gifted. Every single being on this planet is divinely and spiritually gifted, which is a gift that is given from creation for you specifically to express out into the world, right? And then when we tap into what is the truth of us, it's like me when it goes into expression of art and when it goes into writings and even just like physical stuff, because I mean if we're working and we're building our body and building our spirits and stuff like that, we're still creating because we're creating something new. It's like I could transform my body, so therefore I'm creating, which is my temple, which is my physical form in order for God to be expressed, right? The thing is, the world doesn't want you to understand that you can be God in expression. It wants you to more or less be indoctrinated into a system so that you work for the system as opposed to working for God and the kingdom of creation kind of thing, right? And kind of also almost tying back into, so again, when I went into treatment 26 months, I mean, I've always been creative and stuff like that. And that's art has obviously helped me through a lot of stuff, even in my addiction. But, and then I was able to kind of utilize the art to really tap into my gifts and just start doing that, because it's a matter of doing what you love and loving what you do and connecting to your truest essence, which is your creativity, whether it be through art or music or writing or cooking or cutting hair or whatever, whatever brings your heart joy, well, just do that. But the world doesn't want you to be creative anymore, and especially, I mean, just look at the whole AI thing, and let's not even go into that right now, because now they're literally putting a whole fucking grid over reality, and they have augmented a completely different reality, and this is one of the more difficult ones, we'll say difficult levels to break through. Um, but anyway, I digress on that. Um, but going back into, I'd say programs, right? Because we're born, and then our parents also are running specific programs that the system or whatever else put them onto, and then you go into school from like age 5 to age whatever 18, and then you're indoctrinated into a system taken away from your parents, basically. And then they're too busy working to pay for bills and things like that, because that's what we're supposed to do, I guess. At least that's what we're born into, which is supposed to be normal, but it's actually not. And then and then kids will go to school right afterwards. Like they don't even know what they want to do. They haven't really truly found themselves because they haven't been given an opportunity to find themselves. And then they go to school and they put themselves 10, 20, $30,000 in debt to a system that they're going to basically be paying off for X amount of periods of their life. And then, and they get the houses and stuff like that. But what happens is we get trapped, right? Um, so to kind of go with the main point of what I'm saying is I used to do a little bit of Ubering and on my off season from the business, and I used to pick up a lot of kids from like university and college and stuff like that, and ask them, it's like, oh, what do you do? They're like, oh, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Oh, that's cool. It's like, what are you doing after that? I don't know. Just like, okay, why are you doing it? Well, my parents, my dad was an accountant, and my mom was an engineer, and they both make a lot of money,
Hmm.
and he's like, so I think I'm gonna go and do like accounting because I think that'll be easier, and I could still make a lot of money, and that's what they want me to do anyway. I'm like, cool. So, what do you want to do? And then he's like, well, I mean, I actually like programming, and I like, again, I don't know all the digital things, but he likes programming. I'm like, cool, so why aren't you doing that? And he's like, well, there's not really a lot of money in it, and it's just like this and that, and I don't know if my parents would want me to do that. And I'm like, okay. So what you want to do is you want to go for accounting so that you can get an accounting job. And the way AI is nowadays, I mean, who's to know what's going to happen with accounting in the next few years anyway, because so many things are being obsolete, right? Um, so so then I'm like, okay, well, you can do that if you want. Um, but are you going to be happy? Because you might have money, but then you're going to go to a job that is not conducive to your soul. You're only doing it because I guess, out of fear of lack and limitation, right? That you don't have enough money to do what you want to do, right? But then you end up doing something that you actually don't want to do to potentially do what you want to do, but then you're too busy doing what you don't want to do that you don't have enough time to do what you want to do anyway, right?
Truth.
And then
Fact.
and
Fact.
then and then and then you're gonna go buy the house, and you're gonna, be stuck in a mortgage for the rest of your life. And then you're gonna go out and get the nice, beautiful car. Oh, look at my car that I'm, driving 2 hours, 4 hours in a day, hating my life. So even though I'm in this nice, beautiful car, my energy in the car and my happiness isn't actually there, even though I have the car. So it has nothing to do with material because you're not being fulfilled within yourself, right? And then I came to him. I brought this point to him, like, okay, so you want to be a programmer, but there's not enough money in it. I'm like, but what if you are the guy that goes into this program and creates this new, top of the freaking line program that all of a sudden everybody needs your program that you created, and then all of a sudden you have such massive success over so many other people because you were the one that broke or innovated, the programming world, and then you were like a catalyst to like this massive change, and all of a sudden you are rich. You're not just rich financially, spiritually you are like, ooh, right up there. So we limit ourselves too because we still, it's like as an artist, I didn't go to school for art. I didn't go to university for art or anything like that, but I've been able to build a business from it.
Hmm.
It fills my heart. And then I tell people, it's like when you truly tap into what you're capable of doing, what you're here to do, that fills your heart with so much joy, so much happiness, that it doesn't matter about the material because you are full, because your heart is full. And then when your heart is full, you share those gifts. You share those gifts with collective, and then the collective, like the people that I've been able to inspire and encourage and uplift because of my experiences and because of my art. And I tell people, it's like, if you have come to my stand and you have been inspired spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or whatever else, and may not even have bought a product, but they left and they were inspired and encouraged, well, I get paid spiritually, right? Or if they purchase something that I've created, now they have a part of me with them, and that brings them joy, and because that brought them joy, now my heart is reciprocated back with joy. So I'm giving joy,
Yeah.
that joy is being reciprocated back to me, and then we just keep on going up and up and up because we're doing what we love and love what we do and actually connected to the divine, which gives us all the gifts that we're supposed to have. But we live in a system that doesn't want us to understand our personal power, that doesn't want us to do what we love and love what we do, because if we did that, then we would actually be independent, sovereign beings doing what we love and loving what we do and making the world a better place, as opposed to just being kind of stuck, kind of doing the mundane job that actually isn't conducive to our spirit. And then we need material things and addictions to actually fill the void, which is never going to be filled.
Yeah. I'm
I,
gonna
I'm
put a
sorry, that
caveat.
was
I'm gonna put a caveat here, to the people that are in the 9 to 5 job, that have the car and the house, because I know that's a lot of listeners. It's not that we're saying you shouldn't have those things, because again, there could be the opposite of the spectrum, the spiritual archetypal person that has nothing and is broke because it's spiritual. No, no, no. I think here there's a messaging as to say, you know, are you authentically and honestly enjoying your life? Or are you living for the paycheck? Are you living in survival? This is something I hear a lot. It's like we're surviving here. We're only surviving. We're merely surviving. We're like getting by. And I'm looking around, I'm like, you have an Audi. Just like it just doesn't make sense. So there's something deeper here in that, like, the untapped potential that we have as human beings, and you were mentioning this basically of our creativity, which is innate in every one of us, is the source of a lot of our fulfillment, right? How much I can express myself, of my truth, my artistry. And that could look like creating Excel sheets. It could look like actually birthing babies and being a mom or a father. It depends on what really wants to be created through you. The thing is that that requires honesty. And I've noticed not a lot of people are willing to look at themselves in the mirror and say, what do I really want? And people will say, I don't know. Well, let's look at that. Do you not know because you spent all this time running around trying to chase the next job, the next promotion? Again, that's we have to just watch out how again we're feeding into the crumbling matrix, let's put it that way, with the illusion of security. And that's being crumbling too, especially here in Ottawa with the government with all the layoffs. Why are we in the government? Maybe you do love your job, but maybe you're also looking for the pension. Let's be fucking honest. Oh, 10,000 jobs cut. Oh, okay. Like, well, let me get another job. And then we're trying to like find other places, but that, as you mentioned, we won't go into AI, but that are slowly getting, you know, overrun by AI. Sorry, AI can do the work. Even in my domain and maybe yours, like maybe less so yours. I don't have physical merchandise, but I I could be very well replaced by AI if I'm not careful. If I start to outsource my creativity, the reason why people come to me is for my intuition, my holding space, my poetry, whatever it is, right? So it's like I think there's a place where we're starting to realize, well, what is my authentic gift here? What is it that wants to be expressed through me? How does the divine want to speak through me? The wave in the ocean, coming back to that analogy, sure, we can say we are all one and sing kumbaya together in the forest, but for a lot of people, it's like, it's not enough, right? There's that, I'm not going to go as far as saying pride, but like the desire to express your own authentic self, right? So it's like, well, do you have at least an outlet? It doesn't need to be your career, because I think that's also a misconception. Like your career has to be your purpose. You can have a hobby. You can be on the side living your purpose. But you have to be okay with that. And you have to be honest with yourself. Like, is that the life I want? Have that I tried it, I know. One foot one way and one foot the other way with the security. And universe quickly said, you're going all in. That's not for everybody. So I think this is just offering a space for people to have that contemplation, like, where am I right now? Am I plugged into the old matrix, or am I plugging into the original matrix of love, of expression, authentic expression, of connection? Or am I in the scarcity mindset? I'm in the clinging on to security, and we're using job as an analogy, but it's also relationships. It's beliefs. Money doesn't grow on trees. Limiting belief. Right? I can only enjoy my life when I retire. Limiting belief. Like, there's all these ways that the weeds kind of hold you in one specific place. So I think the way I'd love to kind of wrap the conversation is for you, based on your experience and the scriptures and what you see happening in the world and what's coming, how can people really, like, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I want to plug into the original matrix, like, I'm done with this security thing, the scarcity mindset, like, I want to tap in more to my authentic self-expression.
Mm.
What and become a co-creator of this new reality. What would your advice or suggestions be, like a starting point?
Uh, well, I guess I come down to a scripture that says like know thyself, right? Because I mean, if you don't know yourself, then you're just gonna follow the masses. Because and 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 I want to say thank you for mentioning that originally. When it goes into what I was talking about, people working 9 to 5s and things like that. Because wherever we're at on this journey, like this is no judgment on where anybody's at. We're all at different levels of this awakening, whether or not we realize it or not. And the thing is, I mean, there's a lot of programming, there's a lot of things that we've been told that we think is reality, but and it's a matter of trying to break through those things. But in order to start breaking through those things, we need to start asking ourselves questions. If we even just go to, well, am I happy? It's like, if you're happy, well, why are you happy? Or if you're unhappy, then why are you unhappy? Are you doing what you love and loving what you do? And if you're not doing what you love and loving what you do, why not? What limitations or stopping you from actually stepping into who you are? Did somebody tell you something that you weren't good enough to do this? And then therefore you're denying yourself, and not just denying yourself, you're denying the world, all of your beauty. And again, I mean, this is a process. Like this is, again, I've been 14 years in recovery or whatnot, but over the past week, like I've just broke through a lot of barriers and I just faced a lot of stuff. And that was not fun. And the thing is, I guess it's also about being willing to shine light on the things that you don't want to shine light on, because that is where the real transformation is going to happen. Because it's like when it goes into certain beliefs or certain limitations or certain programs, or things that I used to run to make me feel better, which actually didn't. It just kept on going through the same loop, and I just had to keep on experiencing the same things. It's like it's interesting when we talk about this journey and this awakening and stuff like that. So 14 years ago, went into treatment, died, fucking died to a whole life, which I was already dead to and dying in, I guess. And then so I needed to that version of myself needed to die. So I went into treatment and I started looking inside of myself, and I really started building a connection with God, source, universe, however you have it. Um, and then people don't necessarily, believe in God. Well, look inside of yourself, like really, really start taking a deep dive within yourself, because the deeper we go within ourselves and start peeling away all the things that doesn't serve us, we actually start finding our core. And when we can find our core, then we can actually start expressing that. I'm going to be going to this course. It's called Life Lab. Basically, it's like a 6 month kind of program where we're digging deep into limiting beliefs. We're digging deep into specific shadows, um, or we'll say like dark roots that have been buried, and we haven't been able to bring them to light. Because once we can bring those darker roots to light, we can pull that out and fill it with something that is true, and then we can start growing again. But main point of what I was trying to get to that point is when it goes into this never ending type of journey, is like I am, even though I'm 14 years in, I am still in the process of dying again. So the version of me that had got me to this point, I love that version. He survived a lot. He got me through a lot. But as we continuously shed off all that we aren't, we shine light on those things, and then it gives us an opportunity to look deeper into like who we are. So I'm at a point where, again, it's about shedding off and recognizing what makes us feel good and what doesn't make us feel good. And if there's certain things like actually truly make us feel good, because if we're doing something that makes us feel good, like short-term gratification, and we're just doing that to feel good right then and there, well, we're actually denying ourselves the greater goods of things, because we just keep on going to one specific thing to make us feel good. But then over time, it's like with addiction, over time, that one thing is not good. It's just comfortable. And when you're in that comfort, so you have to also break free from these comfort zones that we put ourselves in because it's safe. But the only way to grow and expand and evolve is breaking out of those comfort zones so that we can actually step into the next echelon, we'll say, of this kind of like never ending kind of journey of self discovery. And the more that we discover ourselves, then the more united we become with others too, because then we recognize that there realistically is no separation from us, and we're all in this together. And one of the things too, just on a quick note, is even in my recovery, I've been doing my best to rely on God to help me do certain things, or follow a certain way. But at the same time, even even that part of me needs to shift as well, because I don't know, I just feel within myself that there's things that are being revealed which will allow me to get into the next thing, but it's being willing to face those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
The trust piece is huge. I've been anchoring into that a lot lately. The past year, basically, this whoa, like I can trust life. I'm always provided for, I'm always held and guided. All I need to do is attune within to that place that already knows. I could rest. I can be here and actually live and be present with an open heart and open arms and be discerning too. You know, what do I choose to listen to? What do I choose to channel my energy into? But ultimately, it's like, because I'm so connected to source, to the divine, to nature, to my body, and I love myself and accept myself unconditionally, like, fuck, I'm just trusting the breadcrumbs. And that I think is a big feat for a lot of people, because we want to know, we want to control, and even in the spiritual path, let's put it that way, which is basically just living consciously, it's like, oh, and the next thing and the next awakening, and we start to get into the seeking. But what I realized, and I'll end with this, it's like the more you can actually just be with what is, and less resistance without forcing things or like holding yourself back, the more life can move through you and the more insights can land, right? In a
Well,
purified vessel. It will not land in a toxic vessel. So I'm gonna want to wrap this up right now. We can have another conversation, but
yeah,
just for the sake
yeah,
of this
definitely.
conversation, I
Yeah.
do want to wrap up with letting people know where they can find you. If people are resonating, listening to this conversation, where they could find you in person and online. If you have any programs coming or any campaigns or events, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So like through the website, it's www.startarts.com. So like this is like one of my shirts. So this one is like Be the Change. This is like a bit of a mural that I'm doing, which is like Rise Above. And I have like my stuff up here. Um, so the next event that we're doing is going to be at the Byward Market. So we're doing a meet and greet, which is going to be March 28th. And the idea with this is because I'm all about helping individuals struggle with addictions, mental health, homelessness, and stuff like that, and utilizing the company, producing products with a purpose and streetwear with a message. And so what we're doing is we're providing the month of April for individuals that have struggled with addictions, mental health, and things like that, and utilize art, creativity, writings to express themselves to help them channel um, their light and kind of helping them through their darker periods. So yeah, we're doing a meet and greet on the 28th of March. We're going to have probably 5 or 6 musicians that are also in recovery. We're going to have spoken word. We're going to have testimonies. We're going to have poems,
Mhm.
and then art. And then I'm going to do like I have my meta creational art. So I'm going to have a workshop for that at the event. And then again, for the month of April, individuals are going to be showcasing their art and giving them an opportunity for you know, the regular folk to see their art and to be inspired. Because the big thing too is like when it goes into the company, it's about breaking the stigma when it goes into addictions and mental health. Recognizing that even though an individual may be struggling and going through a difficult time, that doesn't necessarily need to reflect actually who they are as a soul, and they still are divinely and spiritually gifted. They just haven't been given opportunities to see themselves. So I want to provide a space for them to see themselves, but also have others be able to see them as well and to be inspired, encouraged, and uplifted. And then there's a lot of other things going on, but we'll leave it with that. And then again through Facebook, Instagram, Start Arts. So basically it's start and then arts. So ARTZ. On a quick note, Start represents that it's a combination of star art, Star represents that we're divinely and spiritually gifted. It's these gifts that illuminate out into the world, that shines out like a star. Art is endless creation. And then start represents that every day we have the opportunity to start again. When we overcome the limitations of fear, overcome the limitations of doubt, overcome the limitations of our programs, we can overcome the limitations of our world. So, yeah.
Beautiful messaging and very intentional and very inspiring. So I'll leave all the links in the description, and I'll put the date as well for your event for those that are in Ottawa or close by to go check out the Bioid Market. Very inspiring to have you on here, and we can have another conversation because I know there's many rabbit holes we can go into, and I wanted to talk more about your medicreational art, which is your very unique fusion of meditation and creation. But yeah, and if people want to know about that, come to the event.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
March 28th, 11 a.m. until 4 p.m.
Beautiful.
It's free admission. Like we are asking people if they want to do a donation and stuff like that, because we have a lot of things that we're looking for. Like there's massive things happening. We can't get it all into that right now, but yeah.
For another conversation. For now,
Exactly.
just dip the toe in, and then the rest, let the magic be created.
Wow, we just dipped our toe. Whew, that just began all the way.
Yeah, we went through a rabbit hole, but like we stick to kind of one.
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much, Jonathan.
You're very welcome.